Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions. My co-host Stacie here to talk about Frosty the Snowman, the special that aired originally on December 7th, 1969. This would be the oldest thing that we have talked about, for sure. I don't think it's necessarily the oldest thing I've covered, because I did do a Star Trek episode that might predate this one.
Okay.
But yes, we're celebrating Christmas month with this special. And this is going to be interesting to see how this one goes. So,
of course, everyone knows this story.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're just going to have fun and talk about it for a little while.
Yep. Frosty the Snowman. I can't sing, so I won't bother trying.
Well, we shouldn't anyways, because
Yes.
YouTube doesn't like that.
No, we would get docked or penalized or demonetized. The movie's description reads as follows. I don't even know if this qualifies as a movie, but here goes. A living snowman and a little girl struggle to elude a greedy magician who is after the snowman's magic hat. It was written by Romeo Moore. He died on December 30th, 1992 at the age of 64. 62 writing credits, including the 1977 animated The Hobbit, The Return of the King, which also was animated and done by the same people who directed this episode, and many of the specials that we could cover and might very well at some point in the future.
The Rankin Bass specials.
Yes. It was directed by Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr. Both have a lot of the same credits. They were producers on the Smokey the Bear show. And Jules Bass died on October 25th, 2022 at the age of 87. Rankin died on January 30th, 2014 at the age of 89. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that most of the cast involved in this show or this movie or whatever is no longer alive.
I mean, I would expect that to be the case.
Yes, but there is like some background talent, like the behind the scenes people that are actually still working even today.
Okay.
I noticed some. I didn't take note of who they were exactly, but I do notice that some of their credits are pretty current, and it's not like some of the credits that we see for some of the people who are used as soundtrack in series even today, but actual work on television or movies.
Okay.
Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a Sport Free podcast. If you don't know this story, I don't know where you've been. But
yeah, definitely shouldn't be your first exposure to Frosty the Snowman.
But if you haven't ever seen it, I recommend you go and check it out and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please follow and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to the channel.
All right.
All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's special.
So, Frosty the Snowman. So when I was a kid, we had the VHS tapes. It was a 4-pack. So I had Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and The Little Drummer Boy. Mm-hmm. That's my extent of exposure to the Rankin Bass. I've seen a couple other ones throughout the years, but those are the ones that as a kid I had, and so I watched them like over and over again. So I probably saw this like, I don't know, 100 times when I was a child, because we had it. Like, unlike today, like kids today, I sound like I'm 100 years old saying that, they have everything in the world on streaming, right? They watch something once and they never have to see it again. When we were kids, like if you owned something, you watched that shit.
Because it was
over and over again. Because it's what you had.
Until your VHS is worn out. And
like if you owned something, you had no choice but to just keep watching it. Or maybe that was just a my house thing.
No, it was definitely me as well. And I noticed that before this recording this podcast, that you have a couple of these specials sitting on your DVD rack.
Actually, and I was just looking at them when we were recording. I think these are my husband's DVDs.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He owned those.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why, but he does.
Yeah, all right. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much to really say.
I mean, it's Frosty the Snowman. There's definitely like a few lines from this that I just felt like warm and fuzzy about. Like those things that just kind of stick with you your whole life, you know? The happy birthday and the messy. Like, I just know, I remember using that. Like, so many times in my life.
I definitely remember watching these specials on TV when I was a kid. So I have some fond memories of having watched this special way back when.
Yeah.
In the day. So do you have anything else to say before diving in?
Okay, so this special is actually based on the song. The song came first. Frosty the Snowman came out in 1950, the song. The special is based on the song. And unlike most of the Rankin Bass specials, this one only follows that one song.
Yeah.
Now, the other ones are musicals where we have a whole soundtrack. This one is literally just the song Frosty the Snowman spread out throughout the course of the story.
Yeah.
So the version we were taking notes from, we got this on Amazon Prime. It's 25 minutes long. I'm guessing there are other cuts that exist, that are shorter or longer or whatever. Because this is one of those things that has been redistributed so many times that you're gonna see some variance, right? Maybe a scene was cut here or something was cut there. One specific thing to say about this special is there's some ambiguity about the casting and the voices.
Okay.
And that is the fact, and I couldn't find a clear story. I'm finding conflicting information about what happened. But June Foray, who is the voice of the teacher, was the original voice of Karen as well as school children as well.
Yes.
However, at some point, Karen, now this is the main character, like besides Frosty, she's it, right?
Yeah.
Her voice was redubbed by a different actress.
Yes.
As well as the students were replaced by actual kids. And there's some ambiguity of when that happened. Some sources say June voiced her original recording was played for the original air date, and then every rebroadcast after that was the redubbed. Other sources are saying nobody ever heard the original recording, and it was redubbed before it even broadcast the first time.
Gotcha.
Now, the crazy thing about this, though, is the credits didn't get changed until decades later.
Okay.
It was decades before the actual voices we heard got credit.
Gotcha.
Which is just insane to me. How does that happen?
I don't know.
How do you go decades without anybody knowing the voice of the main character?
Yeah, it's pretty craziness.
It's crazy. We're not talking like somebody who had one line. We're
Yeah.
talking like the main character other than Frosty the Snowman.
Right.
So that's interesting. Interesting tidbit. The other thing is that this originally aired on CBS network, and they air it every year on television through 2023, but this year for 2024, the rights have been purchased by NBC, and that's where you can find it this year if you're looking for a linear broadcast.
Gotcha.
The very first time.
Yeah.
Switch networks.
Yep. And then after you watch that for the first time, you should come back and listen to our podcast on it. Anything else before diving in?
I think that's all I have for pre-notes, and we'll talk about the actors and the things that they've done in their lives as we meet them.
All right, so we begin with a narrator saying it all started with the snow. The first snowfall, which is always magical. The narrator is played by Jimmy Durante, 46 credits for him. The very first was Roadhouse Nights in 1930. The last, Howdy, in 1970. He's still earning credits for soundtrack, most recently in Deadpool and Wolverine. He actually died on January 29th in 1980.
Yeah, so the thing about Jimmy Durante is he is most notably a singer.
Yes.
So yeah, he only has, what did you say, 40? Actually, I have 46 acting credits. That's because he's not an actor, right?
Right.
He's a singer who appeared in some stuff because that happens. He also was a vaudeville and Broadway performer.
Yep.
And if anybody doesn't know who vaudeville is, I'm going to say that word a lot as we talk through the Rankin Bass specials because everybody was a vaudeville star back in the day.
Yep.
Which basically was just it was kind of like Broadway, but in a different place.
Yep.
Anyways.
So we end up...
a couple things about Jimmy Durante before you move on. He was the original performer of the song.
Okay.
That's why that's his connection here. He is the singer of Frosty the Snowman.
Oh, okay.
From back in 1950. It was his song.
Gotcha.
I don't think he wrote it, but he was the performer of
Gotcha.
the song. So that's why he was brought in, and of course the song was changed a little bit for this. And the kids that we hear in this special, that's the version of the song that we hear today, is the one from this movie. But previously it was a different recording without the kids involved in it. And he also was famous for songs such as Time Goes By and You Made Me Love You.
Aw.
which just makes me think of Timeless because Abigail Spencer did a beautiful rendition of that song in an episode of Timeless.
Nice. All right, so moving along.
Go ahead.
We are in a classroom. The teacher, played by June Foray, 384 credits for her, including Granny in various Looney Tune projects, an episode of The Garfield Show. The first credit, Daffy Southern Exposure in 1942. I didn't actually make note of her last one, but she died on July 26, 2017 at the age of 99. She is urging the kids that the snow can wait. She's hired a professional magician to entertain the class, and this is Professor Hinkle, played by Billy D. Wolfe, 32 credits for him. Oldest credit for him was Dixie in 1943, and Last Free to Be, ... You and Me, in 1974 was the last, which had, by the way, Alan Alda, Harry Belafonte, and Mel Brooks in it.
He was also a vaudeville turned Broadway star, and let's see, I think he was in 3 episodes of That Girl, 12 episodes of The Queen and I. His list goes on and on and on. He has lots of credits.
Oh, also, I have a note here that says that he was in the 1969 version of Arsenic and Old Lace, which is a play that I actually was in. It was actually my very last high school role. It's a very bit part. I was actually supposed to play a corpse in that play, but that didn't end up working out.
Corpse didn't work out.
No, the idea of me playing the corpse didn't work out. So I ended up with basically a guy that almost got killed and thrown off the stage. And my literal last moment on stage was getting thrown off of it. So take that as you will.
I'm going to go back to June 4A for just 1 second because you didn't give me a chance to speak on
Gotcha,
her.
I'm sorry.
You mentioned she was Granny. She also plays Jokey Smurf. I don't know if you said that one.
Nope.
So she's one of the main Smurf cast, which is pretty cool. And she was Cindy Lou Who in How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Some pretty famous stuff for her.
Yeah. Oh, and Billy D. Wolfe, by the way, died on March 5th, 1974. So the narrator tells us that that this magician is the worst in the world. And we get a visual gag of him doing very badly this magic. Things just kind of fall out of his hat.
He puts the eggs in his hat and ends up just smashing them on the floor. And that's where the line comes from. Messy, messy, messy.
And the kids are very unimpressed with this magician. He throws the hat in a trash can. The rabbit comes out and tries to hop away.
Yeah, this is his rabbit, whose name is Hocus Pocus.
The kids end up rushing outside, started building a snowman, and tried to come up with names, finally hitting on Frosty. We have Karen in the scene, played by June Foray. Who is the actress that plays her in the redub
in the
version?
redub, which is actually the voice we're hearing, but never got credit for until like super crazy later. And it's still like only like, oh, this is the redub voice. But no, it's like the voice from most of the time this show has ever been heard.
Right.
Suzanne Davidson is her name. So here's the thing: is the redubs, they were children at the time. They wanted actual children to be the children's voices, which is probably why they're like, we don't need to give them credits; they're just kids. Like, I'm assuming that's what happened.
Okay.
She played Susan in the 1973 version of Miracle on 34th Street.
Okay.
And she was in 15 episodes of As the World Turns.
Gotcha. And then Frosty the Snowman is played by Jackie Vernon. 16 credits for him, including one called Microwave Massacre. I'm just going to read you the movie's description because it's insane.
Okay.
This was in 1979. It reads as follows. Fed up with his wife's bad cooking, Donald kills her and turns to cannibalism to satisfy his appetite. I'm not going to lie. I kind of want to see that.
Merry Christmas, everybody!
So he was also in 2 episodes of Chips and Kojak the Night Stalker, which, by the way, was the inspiration for The X-Files. And he died on November 10th, 1987.
He reprised the role of Frosty for 2 more Rankin Bass specials, including 1976's Frosty's Winter Wonderland and 1979's Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July.
All right, so they sing Frosty the Snowman, and then the magician chases his rabbit out of the school. Karen puts the hat on Frosty that the rabbit is now vacated, and Frosty comes back to life, or comes to life.
And he says, "Happy birthday!"
Yes.
Famously, every time he comes to life, that's his words. Happy birthday. Love it. Classic.
The magician wants his hat back and argues against Frosty being alive. And then we have our credits, which includes the famous song. The narrator tells us that Hocus Pocus, which is the rabbit, was entirely right for what he was about to do, which is race himself back to the kids with the hat.
So the narrator makes a point of saying it's very important to say that the hat did belong to Frosty and the children. Now, I hate to be a party pooper, I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
Just because the dude threw the hat across the room and was like, this is junk, doesn't mean it's not his property anymore. It belongs to Hinkle.
Okay. So you're arguing against Frosty the Snowman being alive.
I'm saying the whole point of this story is the narrator having to tell us that the hat belongs to Frosty. It doesn't. It's Hinkle's hat.
Yeah.
Just because he was like, this is junk, he just threw it across the room. He didn't, like, take it outside and put it in a dumpster. He didn't, like, leave it and vacate the property. He just kind of threw it indoors, across the room.
So the rest of this story should not have taken place because the hat belongs to Hinkle.
I mean, that's my position.
You are arguing for
this now. I believe that it's not so cut and dry that it belongs to Frosty and he's trying to steal it from them.
You know, I didn't realize there was some deep moral issues in this Christmas special. So the kid puts the hat back on, and Frosty says, "Happy birthday again," and marvels at being alive. He counts to 10 but misses a few numbers, and the kids celebrate as we hear the song. But
we have a note from the Prime X-Ray.
Okay.
A little continuity error here. When Frosty attempts to count to 10, he starts counting to 5 on his fingers. And he has 5 fingers on one hand and 4 on the other. Then after he realizes that he can only count to 5 correctly and chuckles, both hands only have 4 fingers after that.
Whoa.
So he made a 5th finger while he was counting. Which I guess isn't like that crazy because he is made out of snow, not like, flesh. So I guess he could morph his hand, but yeah.
Yeah, they don't call us a deep dive TV podcast for nothing. So Frosty starts to melt as the temperature goes up, which is not good news for him.
Yeah, he says he hates red thermometers.
Karen says they need to take him someplace where he'll never melt. They suggest taking him to the North Pole. Frosty suggests a parade as they march through the town. The sight causes people to fall, cut half of a bread off, and faint. And a traffic cop, played by Paul Frees, stops them for a traffic violation. He has 379 acting credits, including Dimension 5 in 1966. I'm going to read this description.
Okay.
An American intelligence agent, aided by Chinese-American female agent, uses a time travel belt to thwart Chinese operatives who are attempting to import to Los Angeles the materials to make an atomic bomb.
Oh.
That's another movie I would love to see.
Okay, then.
Using an episode of Get Smart and 2 episodes of the Superman Aquaman Hour, the 1967-1968 series. His first credit was a Hollywood detour in 1942.
Ooh. So he's a songwriter and voice actor. And in this, not only does he play the traffic cop, he also plays the ticket taker, Hocus Pocus, that's the bunny.
Yep.
And Santa Claus. So he was a big part of this show. He also is in Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Yes.
As Burgermeister Meisterburger, one of the main characters, as well as like a dozen other people in that, which you can believe we're going to talk about that at some point. And he was in 1979's Jack Frost, 1979 Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July. He reprised the traffic cop specifically in 1976's Frosty's Winter Wonderland.
Okay.
And he was Mr. Fox in the Owl Tootsie Pop commercial.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Everybody knows that commercial.
Yeah, I knew the commercial, but
he played Mr. Fox, which is cool because everybody knows that. But also, this is the very first time I've ever seen a commercial listed on IMDb. And I don't know why that's there, but it is. And I thought it was cool. So it made my list.
Oh, Dimension 5, by the way, also starred Jeffrey Hunter, who was the original Christopher Pike in the first pilot of the original Star Trek. Just throwing out that random piece of trivia that I happen to have in my notes.
That's what we do.
Yes. The kids explain the situation, and this seems to get them out of a ticket. And what were they getting a ticket for anyway? Jaywalking?
So they ran a red light, even though they're walking. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah.
But they were supposed to stop, and they didn't stop. And he was like, I don't know what a traffic light is. I'm sorry, I just came to life.
Right, and that's a good enough excuse.
And he was like, oh, well, seeing you just came to life and all, go ahead.
Right.
And then after they leave, he realizes, like, wait a minute, just came to life? Snowman? Like, what? And he swallows his whistle. Now, my note here is, he knew what a thermostat was. He knows what a train is, because they're going to go hop a train, but he doesn't know what a lamppost is.
I guess not.
A traffic light or a lamppost. He didn't know those two words. So, Frosty seems to have pretty selective knowledge.
Yeah. So, the kids explain the situation. Oh, yeah, okay, never mind. We're moving ahead of that. They head to the train and buy a ticket to the North Pole.
They
or at least
try to buy a ticket.
Try to. But the ticket is going to cost them $3,000.04.
$3,000.04.
That 4 cents is really brutal.
Maybe they have the 4 cents. They don't have the $3,000.
Yeah.
So, and the train was going to route them through Saskatchewan, Hudson Bay, and Nome, Alaska, the Klondike, and the Aurora Borealis.
Oh, nice.
Quite a trip.
Yes, I kind of want to take that trip. So Karen cries about possibly melting.
She's like, we don't have any money.
Right.
And this is another famous line. He goes, no money, no ticket.
So, yeah, they hop on a train in a refrigerator boxcar.
So they don't buy a train ticket. They're just like, oh, look, there's a train. Let's get on it.
Right. And Karen ends up tagging along. All right, so nobody's kind of worrying about the fact that what her parents are going to be.
So it's the 60s. What year is it? 1969. Okay, so Frosty's like, do you want to come?
Right.
And this is the whole problem with this story. We would have been great if we just put Frosty on this train and said goodbye to him.
Right.
But instead...
But now we're kidnapping a child.
Karen says, my mother won't mind if I go to the North Pole as long as I'm home in time for supper.
Right, because that's going to happen.
Because, the North Pole is just, 5 blocks that way, I guess.
Yep. So this is the story of Frosty the Snowman kidnapping a child.
So she gets in the refrigerated boxcar to head to the North Pole with Frosty. And all the other kids just they go home. But Karen...
They're the ones with senses in their brain.
Karen gets on the train, and this is we're up to the part of the song where Frosty has to hurry on his way and wave goodbye.
Professor Wolf, meanwhile, sneaks underneath the train.
Hinkle.
Hinkle. Where did I get Wolf
That's
from?
the actor's name.
The actor's name, okay. Underneath the train, determined to get the hat back.
Yeah, he's going to ride the train underneath the train. That seems like a really dangerous, terrible idea, too.
So, yeah, these people are geniuses, I can tell. So the narrator points out that the ride is not great for Karen, who starts sneezing and freezing to death.
She's literally freezing. Now, Frosty and Hocus Pocus, they're doing great. But she's not doing so great. So when the train stops, they get off the train. It stops at a light. Is there a light in the middle of the woods, I guess?
I guess so. Hinkle, meanwhile, is still on a train. He jumps off it, and it's not a very good landing for him. The walk isn't any better for Frosty and Karen, who worries about... Frosty ends up worrying about Karen.
Yeah, now instead of being on the frozen train, she's just walking through the woods to nowhere.
Right. They happen upon some animals making a Christmas tree. The children are delighted to help with the situation, and they end up building a fire. Frosty stays far away, but he wants help, and they think about enlisting Santa Claus. But as they wait, the professor hops out of nowhere. He puts Karen back on his back, Frosty does that, and slides away.
Yeah, Frosty acts as a sled. They slide down the hill to escape the professor. Now, here's my question here. And again, this is my grown-up logic trying to watch this little kid show. How come the professor's not freezing?
That's a good question.
He is also human.
Yeah.
Karen's having a really hard time. She's about to freeze to death. And the professor just walks up and is like, haha, I'm here to take my hat. He just walked through the same woods they did.
So I'm looking forward to our new career of...
bashing children's stories.
Nitpicking children's television. That's so unrealistic. Anyway, so, yeah. They arrive at a poinsettia shop, and the professor catches up to them and locks them in.
A greenhouse is what this is, where they're growing the poinsettias. They're not literally selling them out of the middle of the woods. Although I'm not sure why they're growing them there either.
Right, yeah. Santa arrives just in time to see a melted snowman. We have a sadder nostalgia version.
Oh, well, you skipped an important fact.
Oh.
Is they get to the greenhouse, and Frosty's bringing Karen inside to warm her up, and he's like, I'll just stay a minute. I could lose a few pounds. It's okay. Hinkle gets there and locks the door.
Right.
He locks Frosty inside. So it's literally become a murder scene where Frosty's trying to escape this heated room and he's locked in. And Karen has to just sit there and watch her friend die and become a puddle of water.
Wow, this show is really dark.
It is. It is. So when Santa gets there, this is when he just finds a puddle and Karen crying next to the puddle.
But Santa
That
says...
used to be her friend.
But Santa says he's not gone for good. He's made out of Christmas snow, which is never gone for good. Santa ends up opening the door. Frosty reforms, but he's not still alive because he does not have his hat. But the professor still wants the hat. Santa says he will never bring him any presents if he touches the hat. Santa tells him to go home and write I'm sorry for what I did to Frosty 100 zillion times. And so he's going to end up bleeding and blisters and...
And if he does that, Santa might bring him something, and Hinkle hopes it'll be a new hat.
Look, I'm sorry. If I write something 100 zillion times, you better give me something for it. So the professor gets all excited, saying, a new hat, maybe. And that sends the professor away. Santa puts the hat on Frosty, and back to life.
And
Frosty
happy
comes.
birthday!
Yes, happy birthday.
And then we hear the song again.
And we ride on Santa's sleigh. He's brought to the North Pole.
First he brings Karen home.
Good.
He brings her home.
At least somebody's acting like a responsible adult here.
I don't know. He drops her off on the roof of her house, so she has to go down the chimney.
Okay. I mean, I guess he's just kind of lacking in social skills.
Before
here.
continuing to the North Pole with Frosty. And we're told that Frosty comes back every single year and they have a Christmas parade. And then we finally hear the thumpity thump thump part of the song.
And that is where the special ends. Yay, Frosty's alive.
So I don't think Karen made it home in time for dinner.
Probably not.
Because it's like the next day by now.
Her parents are going to be really pissed. Or maybe not, because...
I mean, they don't seem to notice that she didn't
Right.
come home from school on Christmas Eve.
I mean, things were different back then, but still,
I think you notice that your kid never came home, especially on Christmas.
Where's Karen?
Why were they in school on Christmas Eve anyways? Did they really go to school on Christmas Eve in the 60s?
I doubt it. A lot of plot holes in this special.
A lot of plot holes. And yeah, so she entered the house through the chimney. Like, no, I don't like that.
No?
Put her on the ground. You don't need to, like, literally drop her off on the roof of the house. Come on.
That's how Santa does.
So my wrong takeaway from this is the story suggests you shouldn't be friends with someone who's different than you.
Oh?
Because Carrie and Frosty were different. They became friends, and they put each other in danger the whole time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, you shouldn't be friends with someone different than you. Or maybe you just shouldn't hop on random trains. Maybe that's
Perhaps
a better
not.
takeaway.
Or maybe you shouldn't go with strange men onto a train and then go to the North Pole with them.
Don't go to the North Pole.
You didn't even offer her candy and she still
Don't
went.
don't get on a train with anybody.
Yes.
Don't get on a refrigerator train ever. And don't go to the North Pole.
All right.
'Cause
Stranger danger.
You won't be home in time for dinner. You
No.
won't.
No.
And she's lucky she didn't die in the woods. And you know, Frosty did die, but he got brought back to life by wind. Because wind touching a puddle turns it into a snowman.
Good to know. I'm going to try that now.
Let's see, the one actor we didn't touch on is the male who did the redubbing of the male children.
Okay.
The boys. Who was Greg Thomas. And he was also in the 1970 Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And he was in 1971 Here Comes Peter Cottontail.
Okay. We're covering at least one of those. So.
We are. And, you know, I said that, and I was like, I don't know if I remember that from my other notes. So I got to look at that. Oh, he also did a redub of that. He was children in
gotcha.
that, too. Okay, so similar situation. They were like, we need some kids. Let's have some kids come record everything for us.
Yes.
Because they didn't think of that in the first run, apparently. And that's all of the actors. Did we talk about all of the parts? I guess Paul Frees is really the only one that had, like, a whole bunch of parts in this. Santa Claus is Coming to Town is a much crazier cast list.
Yeah.
Every person has like 12 characters they cover.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else to say before concluding?
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that I picked it apart. It had been a number of years since I've watched any of these specials. You know, I don't have kids, so I haven't revisited them probably in 30 years.
I'm honestly not sure if Julia has ever actually seen these.
Maybe it's time you show them to her.
Maybe.
I mean, she's a little old already.
Yes.
But it'd be interesting to hear her thought on them. And she'd probably be like, wow, this is bad.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Why are you making me watch this?
but they're classics, and most humans, I think, have watched these. Maybe your
Yes.
daughter hasn't. But I think most people, their parents still show their kids these specials.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe not every year, but I'm sure most kids have seen them once or twice.
Yeah.
I would guess. I hope.
I think so.
I hope that these specials hold up enough that people are still watching them. I mean, they must, because they still air them every year.
Yeah, I mean,
Somebody's watching them.
absolutely.
Or is it just people like us that are nostalgic watching them?
Yeah, and spend 20 minutes to an hour talking about children's cartoon, picking it apart.
I mean, I spent longer taking the notes, I think, than we spent talking about it, just because, the cast and credits and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Frosty the Snowman.
All right.
And one thing about this one, compared to the other Rankin Bass specials, is it is animated. Most
Yes.
of the specials are stop motion.
Yes.
This one is full animation, so it's the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do know there's a sequel, Frosty Returns,
Yep.
which is not Rankin Bass.
Yes.
And I remember, I think I only saw that like once, and I was like, this isn't Frosty. What is this?
Should we cover it?
But I don't. The actual like Rankin Bass sequel, Frosty's Winter Wonderland. I don't know if I've ever seen that. I might want to find that one.
I don't recall. I believe it's available somewhere to
We
stream.
gotta look for that one. Maybe we'll hit that sequel next year.
Maybe. All right. We'd like to hear from you. What'd you think of this podcast? What'd you think of this show? Stacie, can be reached out?
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy. You can join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.